Welcome to Yes Also. I'm Susie Barrett. My guest today is Dhruv Uday Singh. He's a fixture in the LA improv community. He was on several Herald teams at UCB, including Queen George, which is now a house team, and he also plays on ASCAT and Benetton. Dhruv studied at Second City, UCB, and the Groundlings, which gives him a nice rounded perspective on improv. And he gives an analogy in this interview that is perhaps the best improv analogy I've ever heard in my life. If you're a subscriber, check out the bonus content for this episode, including a nice long improvised scene that we do together. And if you're not a subscriber, what are you doing? Head to yesalso.supercast.com and fix that. We're now doing a super cool thing with our top tier Second Beats subscribers where we let you know the guest ahead of time so you can submit questions directly that you would like me to ask that specific guest. It's great. And, of course, head over to Instagram at YesAlsoPod. We have a ton of great pictures of Dhruv from throughout his improv career. And speaking of Dhruv, here he is. Thank you for being here.
What an honor. Thank you.
It's such an honor for me.
I love the pod. I really do. I mean, I've always admired you as a teacher and an improviser and all of that, but I feel like this podcast especially
This has really put it over the top.
It's put it over the top now. Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Of course. No, I mean, you're one of the greats, and it's great to have you here. Where should we start?
I don't know. Where would you like? Do you want to just get into nuts and bolts? Do you want to jump into? We can
start with nuts and bolts or wrenches and screwdrivers. Okay. We could do like a drawer full of nails.
Okay, nails and that's interesting. Like pet peeves, improv pet peeves. That's what that would be.
Right.
I feel like.
You know what's a real nail in my ass about that scene? Do you have any improv pet peeves?
God, I'm sure I do.
Yeah.
Yeah, within like watching improv, you mean? Like the biggest one, obviously, that I think comes up even if I'm coaching, like especially greener teams, is just not being the pilot of the scene. In that, like if you're taking that plane up, I think a lot of greener teams, and I do this sometimes. I definitely started this way. Kind of come on the PA system and like, hey, we're gonna fly this plane. Can we? I guess we'll try to fly it maybe, and hopefully we won't crash, but we might. Like if a pilot did that, you would run off the plane probably.
Right. But so a lack of projecting confidence.
Yes, a lack of, even if you have to fake it, I think just like that immediately puts the whole audience. Makes you feel like you're wasting your time. Makes you feel like I'm leaving my life in your hands, kind of, for 15 minutes or half an hour or an hour. You want them to be at least showing you the appearance of like, we're going to fly this plane and we'll reach our destination.
Right. And I'm sure that comes from a place of like, they're not sure of what move to make or what they get caught in their head about what is the right answer here, rather than just the right answer is like project confidence, make a move, say something, don't sit in silence. Don't look to your teammates to,
Absolutely. Don't look to the audience for like what they will most approve of. Like,
right.
It's you. Essentially, it's the difference between asking the audience what's funny and telling them what's funny. And I think the more seasoned improvisers tend to just tell the audience, this is funny. Or you're not laughing yet, I'm going to double down until I get you,
Yeah.
I think that's
using the plane analogy, that jogged a memory that like years ago, I remember Ian Roberts talking about, a younger improviser or someone who's more tentative and less confident can get in their head if they're not getting what they perceive of as enough laughs, and then they start spinning out and panicking and making panic moves or just becoming really like rattled by it. And he used an airplane analogy. He was like, pilots, if stuff starts going awry, they cannot panic and they can't freak out, or everyone dies.
Exactly.
Like they have to just calmly read the equipment, do the right moves. Like they just have to remember their training and do step by step. Go back to the basics. What was my training? Here's the thing here, and calmly move through the steps. He was like, if improvisers could do that and just be okay with not getting laughs for a little while and just remember what they're there to do, which is like focus on their scene partner, listen, respond, make the next logical move that this, what would this character do?
Yes. I love that.
Yeah.
That's such a good, that's a better, an expanded way to talk about that pilot metaphor. That's really good. I think. Because it's also the only way that anything new can result. Like if you do go back to like a panic move or like, okay, it's not getting a laugh, but if I say this really dirty thing or I'd make this huge whatever choice that doesn't really fit the scene, I know I'll get a reaction. You'll get like a little bit of a laugh because you said whatever the fuck you said that will provoke it, but it won't result in anything interesting or new that's true to this exact moment.
Right.
Scene.
And we've all been in those scenes. We've all been that person who's made that panicky move where you make you make a move that's totally antithetical to what your character would do. You like drop your reality to kind of go for a joke.
Yep.
Or make a big twisty reveal that you think is going to be the out of the scene and it doesn't get as big of a laugh as you thought. So
or doesn't get swept.
Right, yeah. So you don't get edited. And now, well, shit, we're stuck in this new thing. I've bailed on my character. I've bailed on the reality. Now what? And it's so much worse than if you just sat in a scene that wasn't really getting laughs and just played the reality of the scene.
And it takes more courage, or it takes more... just more of a spine to like be able to withstand that. And I think obviously when you're starting out, you're so much more reactive to the audience's reactions.
Yeah.
So I get why improvisers bail on stuff, but I think like it just takes that courage to be like, no, this may not get a laugh for 30 seconds or a minute or 5 minutes if it has to be.
And by the way, those scenes are also often the most compelling to watch because people are connected and in it. And it's like you don't need the laughs, I think, from an audience.
Absolutely. Because you're leaning forward, even if you're not laughing or whatever. You're like, oh, wow, this feels like real people in the scene or real characters.
Yeah, and that's why when I'm on stage, I always look out of the corner of my eye to see how far forward people are leaning.
Yeah.
And then I try to say what will make them lean further.
That's the test.
That's the test.
It's not a successful show for me unless the first row of the audience has their chins above the lip of the stage.
That's right.
Then it's like
I'm really going.
I'm proud.
Yeah, exactly. If I'm not tripping on noses when I sweep, then it wasn't a good show. No. Have that little protractor that I would subtly pull out, and I just check the angle. Yeah.
What do you have? I know I'm not supposed to be interviewing you. Maybe
you can.
Okay, good. It's a conversation for me to learn, obviously. So do you have like a litmus test on like whether a show or a scene or something was good or not, or is it just a feeling?
It's just a feeling. Yeah. And it's interesting, like it's all so subjective. Like I've been in shows where like my girlfriend afterwards will be like, that was one of the best ever. And I'm like, oh, it wasn't my most fun. And she'll be like, you're kidding me. Like you were so funny. And it's like, no, I know. Like, or I know that I know what you're saying. But it wasn't like my favorite thing, Yep. There's like an ethereal feeling. Yeah. There's a zone that a show can get in where you feel like you're on, like you always know what to say. You're moving at like the speed of inspiration.
Yes.
It feels fun and playful and funny, like from your own experience. And you can get a sense that everyone else on the team is also in that state.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And those are the best. It's like totally electric. It moves. There's like people are making tags that you never would have thought of, but where they take it inspires something new. And it's like, oh, that unlocked this new level in me,
Absolutely.
That's my kind of gauge of my favorite shows. I don't know. What about you?
I love that. I mean, I feel like that captures it really well. It is a feeling for sure. I think you navigate by... It's I think like what attracted me a lot to comedy was the kind of black and whiteness of the... It gets a laugh or it doesn't. It's like it's a very like with drama you can kind of endlessly analyze whether something was successful or not. With comedy it's
totally binary.
It's totally binary. It's visceral. It's like it can't be helped. Someone laughs because it's kind of in a very cool way you're gonna get them or not.
Yeah, it's like a sneeze.
It's like a sneeze.
Yeah, you can't stop a laugh if something really got you.
If something really got you, and it's I feel like that. So there is some degree to which obviously you're gonna go by like, well, that if something really kills, it's hard not to look at it that way. But I agree with you in that I've had shows where I felt the audience was giving me a lot. Afterwards, everyone was complimenting it, and I was like, that was me at like a 7 out of 10. That wasn't where I know I can go with it. You know?
Yeah, like I wasn't personally like tickled or like I didn't feel lit up or something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then I guess for me, the Venn diagram where it all meets is what you said, where it's like all your teammates are in that pocket, you're in that pocket, and the audience also felt like they were part of that.
Yes.
You know, of that shared discovery with you. That's when it's like electrifying.
Yeah. And an audience is a huge part of that equation. I've talked about that on this podcast, that like a ticklish audience, or an audience that's on the same wavelength as the performers, their reactivity then feeds the performer machine, and it's like a feedback loop.
Absolutely.
It's like they get more tickled, you get more ticklish, and it's just like a never-ending heighten.
Yeah, it's amazing. And it's so unique to this art form.
Yes.
Know? It's so unique to improv. Because obviously, other comedy has that, crowd worky stuff, and stand-up might have it, but especially improv. Like, the scenes can be affected by the way the audience is
it's a group project, and it really is. There is such an energy in the room where you feel like you're egging each other on, and like you feel the electricity of it in a way that
God, you're making me want to get on stage like right now.
Do it.
What you're talking about.
Oh my God, wait, no, Dhruv, come back. Let's reverse a bit.
Okay.
Did you come to improv as an actor first, or I know you grew up in Mumbai.
I did, yeah.
Yeah, talk to me about your journey.
Sure, yeah. I grew up in Mumbai, then called Bombay till like the late 90s, and then it's hard for people who grow up in that era keep calling it Bombay, like all my friends still do. People in India still do as well. So I'll keep using the two words.
Wait, give me the timeline of the names. What was the date that it
97 or something like that.
It changed to Bombay.
Well, it was Bombay. It was originally Mumbai. It was all these other names, Bombil before. When the British came to rule India, they anglicized all the names so that they could pronounce them. So like Kolkata became Calcutta, and like, you know.
Because Kolkata is too hard, but Calcutta
is easier.
What a bunch of assholes. You know what I mean? It's like we can't say France, but we can say France. Like,
exactly.
Good Lord.
The only one I will agree with the British on, and I might get castrated for this by my people, but there's a town in the south of India called Thiruvananthapuram. They changed it to Trivandrum. I'm okay with that one.
Yeah, we can do that.
I don't want to use all the syllables every time.
Yeah.
But yeah, Bob. So I grew up there. I came out here for college, so I was almost 18, like a month shy of 18. I came to LA to USC. I studied writing, like screenwriting and creative writing, which I still do as well. But I think so. I came to it as a writer, maybe. Mm-hmm. I'd taken one improv class in college. It wasn't a class even. It was like actually taught by like a clowning teacher. So it wasn't really the improv that we do.
This was at USC?
At USC.
So a part of their like theater program or their film.
Yeah, exactly. I wasn't a theater major or anything, but this one class, I just remember being like, I felt really in the moment during it. And then never did it again for a long time till after college. And
was your goal when you moved here to do the screenwriting program? Like, was your goal to be a filmmaker, a screenwriter?
I think so. I was young enough where I feel like, I'm sorry, I think my phone just vibrated. Is that disturbing your? Okay, cool.
I'm very disturbed.
Sorry, I should have turned that off. I don't know where it is though. It's all good. Okay. Sorry. Yeah, my goal was, I don't know. I was like young enough where I didn't have this. I think I did want to be a writer. I knew that. I got like a half scholarship, so that was definitely a big part of the motivation. Was like they're paying for that. You know, it felt like I should take advantage of that. I didn't know that I wanted to stay here necessarily. I think that came over the course of my college years, being like, you know, felt like I wanted to stay out here. But yeah, then I started. Then there was like a time after college when I was just going through kind of a rough patch, I think emotionally and in a relationship and all this stuff. And I was like, I need to. Something about that made me remember how I felt kind of in the moment during that improv class, and felt good at it right away. It felt like, I wanted to do that. So I took an improv class, and then.
What a thing to just pop into your mind. It's like a destiny moment.
It truly feels like that. So serendipitous. And anytime now I'm getting to do something cool because of this stuff, or like you get an acting gig and you're being flown somewhere or something, I'm like, this all happened because of that.
Because decision. Of that breakup.
because I break up. Exactly.
So you need to write your ex a thank you note and be like, hey.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's because of you.
It's because of you.
Yeah, that's wild. So was your first, then when you started at that point, was your first training at UCB?
No, it was at Second City Hollywood, RIP. That's where I met Carl Tarp. He was one class ahead of me.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's when we first started. We didn't like hang out a ton then, but I remember always being like, this dude is the funniest motherfucker I've ever seen. Like even then, like raw, just without all the training yet, he was still just so naturally brilliant.
Natural talent,
brilliant. Him, Greg Gallant, who now I perform with them, both of them
fantastic.
on Queen George, actually. Funnily enough, we're on a team.
That's interesting. Is that coincidental?
Kind of, yeah, because that was the
So
I was put on that team.
Placed on that team.
I got placed on that team. We got placed. Yeah, exactly.
Interesting.
Yeah, kind of cool.
Yeah, cool. Yeah. So, when you started at Second City, did you reignite that original feeling that you had in that workshop in college?
Yeah, that feeling and then some. I think it really caught that. Also, my first class was Jamie Moyer, who I don't know if you've ever had her on, but
she's great.
She's great, wonderful performer and incredible, but also such a great teacher and such an encouraging voice. And after like that first class, because I told her I was a writer and stuff, that she took me aside and was like, you gotta come back, you gotta do this, you have it like she was so that's the whole reason I was like, yeah, okay, I'll follow her advice.
She was frothing at the mouth, strangling you.
Yeah, kind of
you
like like just insisting. And so that really helped for sure. I think encouragement early on is so big for anyone, because you get so much discouragement inevitably, at least my experience was, after that.
Discouragement from teachers or from the outside, or just naturally like you feeling like this is hard? And
combination. Naturally feeling, for sure. Obviously there's obstacles to anything, but especially anything artistic that you want to do. But also not, I won't say teachers, one or two, obviously there's always some. I got a lot of positive encouragement, don't get me wrong, but I think also, not to make it about this, but I think the era I was coming up in, let's say 10, 11 years ago, there was also no one who looked like me, especially UCB was like, it was a very white theater. Mm-hmm. And so even that feeling of like, I don't really feel like I belong here. Having one person be like, no, you belong, I think helps you feel like, oh yeah, maybe there is a place for me.
Yeah, that's
eventually.
Huge.
Yeah.
And a good reminder for all the teachers and coaches out there who are working with newer, younger classes, like to remember that does make an impact.
Yeah. And you never know where that can. I just feel like as a default, especially if you're teaching a 101 or anything like that, I would lean heavily on what they're doing right. First at that level, the little critiques are not going to make give them pushing, especially if someone's making egregious choices, tell them so. But I think like you learn so much more from positive feedback at the start than you do later on. You need probably a little more whiplashy style teachers, but initially at least.
Well, and what's interesting too is like anything that you want to achieve in terms of guiding a student or a person you're coaching, you can achieve it either through the positive feedback or the negative.
Yeah.
If you want someone to stop swearing so much, you can either say, you swear a lot, you have a terrible mouth, or you can say, I love the scenes where you don't feel like you have to lean on language. I loved that one where you just played like responsible dad. It was so cool because it was kind of outside your normal tendency to swear. You can like find an example of when they've done the other thing and like feed that meter.
I love that. I feel like you're very good at that.
I try to be.
Yeah, you're amazing at that.
Well, because also like as a teacher, I don't want a downer vibe in class because that's not fun for me or for anyone.
Yeah.
And you can really see, I mean, improvisers are a lot like working with like a puppy dog. It's like you can instantly see that they're like, oh, I've let myself down, or oh, I'm so disappointed. They're gonna go home and be bummed about the class. I don't want that.
Yeah.
I want them to be excited.
Yep.
So yeah, like the same as I wouldn't like spank a puppy to tell it that it's not sitting. I just reward it when it sits.
I love
and
that.
Like pat its head and be like, you're great. Isn't this fun?
Yes, I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah.
I don't mean to be so like diminutive and I don't mean to reduce human beings to like, they're just like fucking young dogs.
Well, kind of, we are also. Well, I think all humans are. We
Yes.
have a side of us that's just like a little dog that needs to be trained and pet.
Yeah. And I'm the same way personality wise. Like I do so much, I'm so like approval seeking.
Yeah.
And I do so much better in life in general when I'm like encouraged and complimented and I know that I'm like doing a good job versus like I got yelled at or something, you know.
Have you never had kind of the whiplash style teacher in your experience?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think I would do horribly with it. I've had like coaching moment, like sub coaches here and there, where I've been like, that person's kind of mean.
Yeah.
I feel like nothing rings in my ears. So maybe I've either blocked it out or it didn't happen. But like, I don't have any memory about someone specifically like nailing me for something.
Yeah.
But I remember being in like sub coach classes where I was like, oh God, the vibe is just harsh, you know.
It doesn't create the best work either, I think, from everyone else too, because everyone else is then scared of making any kind of mistake, and you know, it doesn't create an atmosphere for success.
I don't think it would. Also, like, to me, half of the quote unquote success of improv is the vibe and the, like, it's sort of like, well, what's the metric? First of all, are you having fun? Is it bringing you joy? Great. That's half of it.
Yep.
The other half is, how is the scene and how can we sustain it and where are the laughs and how can we honor your choices? And I don't know. I do think it's like, I think the having fun and does it bring you joy, I think is half of the equation.
It's really, really true, because the audience feels that. If you're doing a show, that part is very, very, it's there in the room, that whole feeling, you know.
And ultimately, I think you shouldn't be pursuing this if it isn't on some level bringing you joy. Absolutely. Even the challenge of it or whatever.
Because there's no product. It's an art form based in a process. So if the process itself is not giving you anything, you have nothing.
Right.
You literally have nothing at the end of it, you know. So why not? I mean, you can learn a lot and you can take these skills and put them into more product based art forms like acting and writing and all this stuff. But at the end of the day, there is only that.
I mean, that's interesting. I feel like I think there is a product. I think it just happens at the same time as the process.
Oh, yeah.
But I do think because I buy tickets to see improv shows. So that's like a product that I'm getting.
That's true. And now in the age of recorded improv and podcasts and all this, yes, there is that. That's true. Yeah, you know what? I revised my statement.
No. But not to like say you're incorrect. I like digging into that and like.
No, you're right.
Yeah, like what is.
You're right. I guess to go back to like another analogy of it, it's like it's an art form where the audience is watching the artist paint the painting as it's being painted and discover each stroke along with the artist, and then after the painting's done, you set it on fire.
Right.
Or you put it on yourwolf.com for $9.99 a month or whatever.
And someone else makes money off of it. They paid you $20 to do the painting, but then they make $10,000 a month forever off of it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Let's talk about now like your journey through classes and through learning. Were there any sort of like key moments or key lessons, light bulb turn-ons that
while I was a student of improv?
Yeah, or like during your growth cycle.
Yeah. I mean, definitely certain teachers who I remember. You are one of them. Specific lessons. Craig Kakowski, who I know you've had on the pod. Phyllis Katz, who's this teacher at the Groundlings, who I really. So
you also studied at the Groundlings.
The Groundlings, did Sunday Company there, which is like their weekly sketch
No
stuff.
idea you did Sunday Company.
Yeah, well, I started UCB while I was waiting for. There was a long wait between levels there. Now there may not be. I don't know. Between the improv and then writing lab, and so I started in UCB class. I was like, oh god, I want to do this more.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think big lessons. Sorry, I'm trying to think of like specific moments, because it's easier for me to think of teachers who had a big impact. Obviously,
that's cool too.
Yeah.
Well, and like, what about these teachers, or like, I
think in the case of, for example, both you and Craig, a great, and Phyllis too, a great combination of creating an atmosphere for fun, for risk taking, for mistakes, while still noting things, while still giving direction. I feel like if there's a spectrum, teachers can tend to fall on one side or the other of just being like, let's have fun and kind of be in the moment, or really harsh noting, which I
Right.
did have teachers. I did definitely have whiplash style teachers. So I feel like that teachers right in the middle, I think that was, like you said, a big revelation for me, because it was like, oh, if you just have fun, better work tends to emerge. I think another thing that was a big lesson was like, if the whole 10,000 hours thing is true, which I don't think it's absolute. I think like everyone has different levels of how many hours it takes to get to mastery.
9,127.
That's it. That's that's the amount for improv, for long form improv.
Yeah.
Correct. But if there's weight, obviously, and you do more hours of something, you get better at it. I think a lesson for me was that half an hour on stage is worth about 4 hours of class hours, because there's no net, especially if it's a paying audience. They don't give a shit. They laugh or they don't laugh. They lean forward or they don't lean forward.
Yeah.
So like there's no safety net like there is in a class. So I started to feel like the more stage time I got in front of real audiences without that, class is important because you learn principles and you learn techniques and all that, but it's worth, in the journey to mastery, I think, like half an hour on stage without all the fetters.
So 1/8. So you can, if you just do like 1,200-ish hours of stage time, you're a master at improv.
You're a master at improv.
You can shortcut it. Skip classes. Save yourself the time. Just build a stage. Never take a class.
Don't you feel though, like if someone built a stage and without ever taking an improv class, got up without a script in front of an audience that many times, they would they'd do something different than what we're doing, but they would do something interesting eventually if they took the feedback of the audience repeatedly.
Well, I feel like to some extent this is being really like simplistic and not 100% like a analogy that tracks, but to some extent that's what stand-up is. Like a lot of stand-ups don't take stand-up classes. Most that I know haven't taken classes in it. And even if you are taking stand-up class, I think it mostly teaches like how to write material and how to like craft a joke. It's not crowd work or, make these people laugh right now with no script. So yeah, I think that's the closest analogy we have, is like that trial by fire. Clowning too does quite a bit of like, all right, you're going to go up with this prop and make something happen,
Yeah, just be entertaining. I mean, there's, an audience is a better teacher, I think, than anyone, ultimately.
Well, they're so honest.
They're so honest. There's more of them. And yeah, like there's no ambiguity in their notes.
There's no ambiguity in their notes, right? Back to the binary nature of it got you or it didn't get you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because even when I'm coaching or I've taught, like I am laughing probably a little more than I would sitting in an audience, because there's one of me and you feel like you have to give some support for things. An audience won't necessarily do that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely like developed a laugh over the years of coaching boot camp. That's like, and now it still comes out sometimes when I'm in an audience and I'm like, that's not my real laugh. Yeah. That's just like a very projected laugh.
Because they need that.
Yeah.
They need to hear that.
They've got to hear the like, so they know they're doing well. Yeah, it's interesting. And another thing that's like no small thing, I think, is when you're in class and it's like, okay, half the class gets up and the other half is down. So you have an audience of your peers. It's still not really an audience because they've all paid to be there. Right. It's selected by, they're also improvisers. When you play, at UCB on any given night, it's like a random, you'll have some improvisers there, but you'll just have people off the street too. And some people who have never seen improv.
Which is kind of great. I do love, like, I think doing ASCAT, doing the weekend shows, because there's something so fun about playing that crowd.
Totally.
They're so ready.
And it's a different type of laugh.
It's
too.
a totally different type of laugh.
Yeah, I like tourist shows.
Oh my God.
Go ahead.
Oh, okay. I was going to talk about an audience experience that was like new to improv experience. There was a one-off, I don't think it's ever been done again, but there was a Sonoma Improv Festival, I want to say like 7 or 8 years ago. Did you do that?
I didn't, but I remember that coming up and people going up to do it.
Yeah, a bunch of us went up there, and my first Herald team at UCB went up there to do it. and we decided to do a Herald for some reason. It was it was like at a church, I think, like a huge church audit. It was like every local resident came because they'd never seen this before. Packed crowd. No one had seen improv ever, any of them. And we decided to do a Herald for some reason. And as we were, the time I realized like, oh, there's some worth to this form is in the second, we started a second beat, and some lady in the back of the audience went, these two again, about the characters that we brought up. And I love that kind of audience who are just like there to be surprised and delighted.
Yeah.
Every little thing makes them laugh. Yeah.
That's also so funny. Like, her tone like, I don't want to see this. Like,
no, it felt delighted. She was like, these two characters are back.
Gotcha. I thought she was like rolling her eyes like, this guy's gonna try to take advantage of that guy again. I don't want to see that. But yeah, her saying that tells you that you're doing it right.
Yeah.
'Cause it's like, yep, you recognize this game.
Yeah.
We are playing these characters the same way.
Yeah, exactly. But then we started, after someone swept like the second group game, she yelled out, Benghazi. So I'm not sure if she knew what was, she just thought now is another time for
another suggestion. Yeah. That's so funny. Also that it took her that long. By that point, you've had like 7 sweeps. Yes. That's like, yeah.
We're like 28 minutes into the show.
Yeah, and she's like, okay, now I can, here we go. My suggestion is going to be Benghazi. Like, this will bring joy to the room.
This will bring joy to the room. Yeah. This was several years after Benghazi was a very hot topical reference.
God.
Also.
It's like, 7 sweeps and then waterboarding. Like, God, ma'am, just have your wine and watch our comedy. Let's circle back a little bit. So not Groundlings. You started Second City Hollywood, then Groundlings, and then did UCB while you were waiting for Groundlings Sunday Company.
Exactly.
Let's talk about that experience, because those are 3 sort of different philosophies, ways of teaching.
Yeah.
Did you love all of them? Do you have a favorite?
Because UCB's kind of become more my home improv. I perform the Crazy Uncle Joe show occasionally at Groundlings, which is their long form show. But I think UCB obviously had the most freedom to me of what I could bring my voice to it. I could bring what I wanted to do to it. I think that's what obviously appealed to me the most.
Talk about that. Like, in what way is Groundlings not primed for bringing your own voice?
I think it's changed a lot. I don't want to shit talk it because there's a lot of good to it. I learned a ton from it. The training is really good at many points. I think it's because it's a sketch. It's a big character based sketch theater, right? And I love that stuff. I love big characters. For me, I found, especially in the time I was coming up in it, I don't want to blow them up, but
I don't want you to. I'm just saying, I'm just trying to parse the difference
there. Totally.
Yeah.
I think I just found that I was like, not everyone, but I was sometimes encouraged to either lean into big stereotypes, like make this character a big Indian stereotype character, or completely whitewash it. And I was like, that's not true. I just want to do like, these are real people that I know, and if the audience is laughing, to me, again, that's the barometer. Yeah. The laugh should be the thing. But it wasn't. It was like, I think especially when I was coming up, it still is a little bit as a more homogenous theater. You don't know what to do with something different. Mm-hmm. And I think the reason improv attracted me eventually, and especially UCB too, might have issues, but I think like what attracted me, and I think a lot of people like me, I've talked to my friend Lamar about this, is like when we came up, it was like if you were going to be cast in something as an actor, it's going to be in a very narrow box. If you get to do this or this or this, you get to be I could be the 7-Eleven clerk or the doctor, basically. And the era those were the roles. And it's like 3 lines and a whatever. With improv, I was like, no, I will be whatever I want to be. And if I could get good at it, I can run circles around anyone if they try to put me in a box. It didn't matter. So I think that I felt that freedom with it. Eventually I was like, the philosophy of UCB, it can be confining to some people who don't want to play game a certain way, and I totally understand that and respect that. But I think if you can take it as one of the tools in your tool belt, you can do wonders with it. You can make it your own and bring your own voice to it. You can bring all the other stuff to it,
Yeah. And I mean, that's something that in general is a gift of improv, is like, if I go to a commercial audition, I'm auditioning to play a mom.
Yeah.
Like, that's it.
Yeah.
When I book a role, they put the first thing they do is they put a wedding ring on me, earrings, and a pink shirt.
Right.
Literally.
Right.
But in improv, like, I can play a dog, a moose, a baby, an old man, a pirate. Yeah.
Yep, absolutely.
It's very fun to jump around in that way.
It's very freeing.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially when you feel like there's a narrow confine to what you're being told you can do.
Right.
It's like no, I'm gonna do what I want. And I think that gave me a lot. That freed my whole voice up. That freed me up a lot.
And what a frustrating talk about binary. Like for you, like only 10 years ago, that it's like, okay, my two options are a 7-Eleven worker or doctor.
Yeah.
Like, come on.
I know.
Yikes.
And look, don't get me. I also, there's something to be said for like a Trojan horse approach to this industry, which is like, if you can get in the door, take the fucking thing and get in the door, and then find your way to.
And then while you're doing that 2-line 7-Eleven clerk role, in the middle, just improvise a monologue.
Exactly.
That's like something a romantic lead would say.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I don't want to. This is a version of that, which the first kind of proper TV thing I got was this role, and I was on the show called Good Trouble, which ran for.
Oh yeah.
And I was like he works at a tech office. It's like it's in the reign of stereotype. It's very true. There's a lot of brown people in tech. And in the pilot, I only had like 2 lines, and then because I knew TV shows, I've written a couple episodes out. I would throw in like a little button here and there with improv, and they liked it, and they started putting them in the episodes, and eventually that role became. My character started dating the lead, and I started having a lot more meat, in the show.
Wow.
So I feel like there's something to be said about.
Yeah.
You have to be bold. You have to be very judicious about how you're bold, and you got to be funny if you're going to be bold like that. But there is something to be said about that.
Do you
approach.
credit that to your improv training and your improv experience?
Oh, 1,000,000%.
The confidence to throw a button on, the ability to know the game of the scene enough and what your character would say to like throw a funny thing that's accurate.
Absolutely. And that show wasn't even a comedy, not straight. It was more of a very called a searing drama, love triangles and shit like that. But
your buttons were searing buttons.
Exactly.
They made the entire crew go, "Oh, wow." Hey, do you mind if I throw a searing button on the end of this? Let me just try something.
Can I smolder right into the lens as I say this line?
Do you mind? Do you mind if I smolder until you're taken aback? We'll just see what comes out, yeah?
Yeah, let's give it a shot.
Yeah. And now that you're having success as an actor, like, you can't do this
like
after
this. It's like it's success is a very relative term, but yeah.
Well, if we zoom out and we look at where the ups and downs are trending, it's like towards more and more of a career and roles. Yeah.
I'll say this. At least I've been able to make a living doing this. Which is not massive success yet or anything, but I'll take it.
It's massive comparatively.
Yeah,
if
absolutely.
you think of all the people who want to be actors in the world who are not making a living at it, that is a massive
100%. I'm very grateful for that.
I want to give you the credit that you deserve.
I'm very grateful for it. Don't get me wrong.
But is that like now kind of your main goal and focus, or is screenwriting creeping back into your narrative at all?
It's that. I think it's the multi-hyphenate thing. Which I've been writing. I've had some writing. I don't want to say success, but sold a thing here, an option a thing here. It's very modest, but acting ended up being what pays the bills. So you follow the trend. I think my goal has always been to be a multi-hyphenate, to write, direct, and act, and that's been my I'll make shorts to do that. I'll do whatever I can and to get that going.
Yeah. Just keep trying to add hyphens until there's.
Yes.
Jesus, Dhruv, your
writer,
resume
director,
is
actor.
too wide for the printer.
Sock maker.
Sock maker.
Pro surfer. Graffiti artist.
Cookie elf. Pro surfer, graffiti artist, all things that have a lot of staying power and predictable incomes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Not one of these hyphens is actually a sound financial decision.
Right. Yeah. So talk to me about personally, like when you're improvising, what do you think are like your tentpole like characteristics? Like what is your identity as an improviser, or what do you think is the most important focus of a scene or a show? Where do you kind of...
I would say for my 10 poles are like, call it a smoldering, ruggish masculinity projected in every scene.
Yeah. It's every, as long as every character has a 5 o'clock shadow and pauses for 30 seconds between lines.
Yes.
With a squint.
With a squint. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. That's it.
That's it.
Yeah.
Great. I don't need to take your workshop
I
now.
think my 10 poles, like what I lean on and think is important in a scene.
We could almost think of it as like, if I were to redraft that question, when you are coaching teams, what are the things that you are pushing them towards, or that you are noticing? What are the things that you think are important as guideposts? I'm gonna hit you with a really overwrought analogy. I
for this.
love analogies.
Because improv's so nebulous and large. I feel like you have to talk about it in terms of analogies or metaphors.
1,000,000,000%.
Yeah. Okay. So if this is really, really overwrought, but if every skill you learn and every branch and arm and everything in improv, so like game and justifying and character playing and yes, and the basic building blocks of improv, if all of these things and skills and tools are different watercolor paints.
Ooh,
right?
I like where this is going.
Each one's a different watercolor paint in your palette. Game, the character play. I think emotion is water. So they only pop on the canvas if you add water to them, if you add emotion to it. So if you play a character a certain way, it's not really a fully fleshed out character until there's emotion powering the point of view of the character. Game is fun, but it's only a base pattern without emotion powering it from anywhere, right?
Right.
Object work even is a beautiful thing, but it's so much more effective, and the colors pop, in other words, with water, or they're just kind of dry paint.
That's one of the best improv analogies I've ever heard. Did you come up with that?
I did.
Yeah,
I did.
That's good.
It's pretentious. It's very pretentious.
Like
in the art of improv.
Right. Yeah. When using your instrument to connect to the palette of tools.
Exactly. That's how I talk about it.
Yeah. A lot of analogies start sounding pretentious because you're like, oh God, I'm speaking for so long about this, and it's so what's the paper? The audience?
Oh, that's good.
They have to receive it, and there has to be something or is the paper the base reality on which these unusual things appear, because we have our own reference base of like what a doctor's office should look like. So now when this is appearing on it,
I love that. I think that works. Yeah.
Okay.
The base reality of it. Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's great. I think that does work.
Great.
Yeah, because it's that idea of when you want a clear canvas too. You don't want it to be dirty to start with. So if there's too many weird things already, then the color blue won't show up when you put that little dot of the unusual on it.
Right. And you can't watercolor on a flannel shirt.
Yeah.
We won't see it.
Right.
Yeah.
And that means like if those first 3 lines are crazy town, you don't have any. You have a flannel shirt.
You have
rather than a clean canvas.
Flannel.
Yes.
Again, here I am trying to watercolor, and I'm the only asshole who brought a flannel to class. God, this is so embarrassing. I just want my teacher to like what I'm doing. Stupid. Yeah. Just imagining a watercolor class, 20 blank white papers, and one person trying to paint on a shirt.
Yeah.
It's very funny to me.
That is a good analogy to bring to that one person in class who keeps starting scenes with like, in the dildo office here, whatever.
Yeah. Welcome to the dildo office on the moon. Okay, freeze for a second.
This is a bit of a tangent, but in my 101, I had one of the. It was so sweet in retro. It was one of the sweetest. There's this one dude who really took the note of who, what, where initially, like setting up the who, what, where as very important in the scene. And so he would start every scene with, "I'm your doctor. This is the doctor's office. It's 1996. Hey, welcome." He would just do the who, what, where as the first lines, and it was sweet. It worked.
Yeah, right. Well, now we got that out of the way.
We got that out of the way. Here's
Yeah.
the canvas. Yeah.
Yeah. I from time to time I coach teams to try to get more specific about their details. So instead of just like, can I get you something to drink? Like, can I get you an iced tea or whatever? You know, just like saying things to, as Craig Kikowski says in his episode,
Yep.
it's not just to be specific. It's also to inspire more in your partner.
Yep.
And my angle was always like, oh, and it says more about your character.
Yep.
Like, you know, my
Absolutely.
dad always had Pepsi in the house and would always order Pepsi when we went out. And I always thought that was so funny. And it just says something about him.
It definitely
Coke
does.
is kind of the default setting of the world, you know. Can I get a Pepsi? And they'd be like, Coke is Coke okay? He'd be like, okay.
It really says something about the guy. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
So-
also, it's funny. It's like breakfast. I had breakfast is not inherently funny or that specific.
Right.
I had a waffle is a little funny.
Yeah.
I had half a waffle for breakfast.
Very
Now we
funny.
start to go like something's up with this character.
I had half a dry waffle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now we have there's so much laden in that.
Right. Yeah. We should play a game with that in a second. That
Okay.
sounds fun. Like 6 different ways to order a waffle that says something about the character.
Yes, that's good.
But what I want to say is like when you were saying like the guy who did all the exposition, I have coached people who like they're doing what I asked, which is like be as specific as possible. You know, instead of just saying a noun, like be specific with it. But it takes a while to kind of learn the nuance of it. So I've had people be like, can I offer you a seat on the purple divan with orange cording that I got from a thrift store in South Carolina while I was on a road trip with my mom to look at colleges? It's like, yes, you were so specific. I cannot fault you. And there's now so much to respond to. And now we've kind of like lost the momentum of the like rhythm of our scene.
Yep.
It's not how people speak, but in terms of the exercise, yes,
You nailed it.
filled it. You nailed it. But it also makes me smile because it's like, yeah, for young improvisers or even people who have like just finished their first time through a program, there's so much walking and chewing gum. There are so many assignments to fulfill.
Yep.
Even just doing a scene is spinning so many plates. And then to have like a teacher or a coach be like, and here's what we're going to do today. And it's like, now you're adding something to my plates to spin. Yeah.
It's just that's the learning process. I feel like initially, you know, it's part of it. I think, and that's why I think you have to get on stage in front of live audiences, and that's why I think those hours count more because you start to burn off all the baggage of that, and just you start to eventually find your voice by doing that. You know.
Yeah.
I credit a lot of honestly, like I hosted this. It was the back theater at the old IO West, rest in peace, also called the DCT, and you could like pitch indie shows, and so it was small shows, but for 2 years weekly I hosted this 2-person improv show when I was just coming up with my friend Mary Bonnie at the time. Then we started having different people co-host with us and all this stuff, but for 2 years I just did like a 2-person show, hosting it and also doing like 20 minutes on stage.
And then you would have other duos come
up,
fun.
you know, and so like sometimes it'd be for 4 people, sometimes it'd be for 30 people on a very good night. But I credit those 2 years of just doing that over and over again with finding so much of my voice or anything, because it was just, there was no net. It was just, okay, these 4 literally random high school students walked in off the street. We got to give them something. And it didn't matter whether you were following the rules of game or whatever. They were either laughing or not, you know.
Right. And doing it to-prov style really forces the issue because you don't have a back line to retreat
There's
to.
no thinking. You cannot. I mean, you can think, but you'll drown. And I did many times drown because of that, and eventually learned, oh yeah, you cannot think. You just have to be there in it.
You're a player who improvises with so much composure. Like I don't. Speaking of that pilot analogy from Ian Roberts, like I don't see you get rattled on stage ever. Like you always just like really hold court, and you have such a like such a level of commitment that's like you refuse to get rattled by distractions or by an audience who's not on board or whatever. You're going to like progress with what this character's thing is.
Oh, thank you, Susie. That's
it's
cool to hear, because I feel like I get rattled sometimes, but I've tried to less and less. Okay, good.
It doesn't show.
Okay, good. Yeah. Okay, good.
And that's also where I'm like, why I asked in the beginning, like, were you an actor first? Because it does feel like it maybe was, to me from the outside, it's like, was that rooted in acting training and a sitting in a character? But no, turns out it's just years of two-prov.
Years of two-prov for sure.
Yeah.
I think now, once I started like doing acting stuff, and especially because it was more dramatic acting, I started realizing I need to beef up that side of my training, or that side of my play, and I think that's helped a lot.
So you've been eating a lot more beef.
Eating a lot more beef. Yeah.
Only during improv shows.
Yeah, it's right behind the stage. So if you see me disappear behind a curtain and come out rubbing my mouth,
I have seen that. I assumed you were getting a sip of water. It was
ribeye.
A sip of beef.
It was a ribeye steak.
It's a full ribeye. When you go back and visit now, is there an improv scene at all happening there, and what's that like?
There is. It's a smallish scene, nascent, and it's a friend of mine actually who I was in high school with, Neville Barucha, kind of is. I don't want to say heads it up, but he's one of the big figures, and because there's such the whole movie industry is out in Mumbai. There's a lot of actors and stuff like that. And every time I go out there, I will hit him up and go teach like a couple free workshops and do some shows with them just to spread the thing. And every time I do it, Neville's like, thank you. We now have like 8 months worth of exercises that we'll keep doing.
Oh, great.
So it's very cool. It's like going and like refreshing the pot a little bit, It's cool. It's a very cool scene. They're very funny. I like them. They're doing a lot of short form, or they do a mix now. They do like half of short form, because the audience is not, has not been exposed as much to improv.
What language are they doing it in?
Mostly English, but kind of a little bit of Hinglish, which is the sort of the lingua franca in Bombay. People speak English with a little bit of Hindi thrown in here and there. So that's kind of what the improv is, It's cool. They're good. Like I love
short form, long form, both.
They tend to do they tend to start with short form. This is at least the last time I was there, and I'm going back in December, so I'll probably teach a little bit and do a show with them again. And then the second half, they call it a game. They'll say, now we'll do a game called the Herald. And they'll do it's not really the Herald, but it's like a truncated version of it. That was my experience last time. And last time I went, I taught them Pretty Flower. I'll just like teach them new forms and stuff.
That's great.
Yeah, it's cool.
How does that feel to be kind of like an influential part of a budding scene? Like what you bring to them, they will now work on for a year and make shows out of.
It's very cool. And it feels natural. It feels like, if I have the opportunity to be out here and learn from the best and the originators of this shit, I should be spreading it, in that scene over there. So it's very cool. It is very, very cool that improv is such a weed. If you put it somewhere, it just grows and people
Another great analogy.
Another great analogy.
Yeah. It really does. It's like and I think people, audience and performers, get hooked on it a bit. It's like, oh, this is so fun. And you don't need any equipment, and you can do it for free. You can do it on a sidewalk or whatever, Yeah.
And it tends to attract all kinds of people, but also people who maybe are outsiders in other ways, or people who are shy and introverted in their regular life can still perform and get something out of it, which I think is really cool. There's a lot of people in Bombay doing it who have nothing to do with performance, but their job is just sitting at a desk and not relating to people. So this gives them an opportunity for that.
That's
cool.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Let's do some rapid fires.
Okay.
What? Get ready. Better be rapid. What are your favorite characters to play? Favorite types of characters?
I like playing oafs. I like playing animals. I like playing a high status people who are very stupid or very, very wrong in their philosophy of the world.
Yeah. Animals is a surprising answer. I feel like I haven't seen you play a lot of animals.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I don't as much as I should, but I like to.
Are you talking like speaking like fairy tale animals, or you like doing the physicality of like playing a deer or a bear or something?
I love when I do it. I don't do it enough, but I love when I play the physicality of an animal and in a scene, but I don't do it. I think I tend to be very verbal because I I am. So I have to push myself to do it. But when I do it, I really enjoy it.
That's great. Great answer. Do you have a favorite type of object work to do or to watch?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I love things that get progressively more complicated. So, like, if you're in a car and there's just way more things going on in the car, or, you know, when someone opens a door and you're like slowly finding a million different ways to open the locks on the door.
All the different latches and locks.
Yeah. I love stuff that's just like, oh, we didn't know that was part of the environment, but now it's part of it.
Yeah. One of the gifts of improv.
One of the gifts of improv.
We slowly see what the reality is.
Yeah. I love that shit. Yeah. I also love, I think, object work based on clothing, on your own clothing, and same principle applies. Like, oh, we didn't know this person had this huge hat on, but it perfectly fits everything that came before.
Right.
When it's a reveal that's so perfect, or like a mustache or whatever. Yeah.
And it can be its own. It's like it becomes bunk bed jokes. Like the dialogue is one set of jokes, but then there can be a silent joke while you're speaking, and you pull off a 10-gallon hat or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like, whoa.
Yeah.
If it serves the scene and doesn't sell out the characters and doesn't change the reality.
All those disclaimers for sure. Yeah.
Do you have a favorite type of show to do or a favorite form?
Favorite type of show? I do love premise-y based stuff like ASCAT, but then again, I don't know. Queen George, my team does just a slacker without any opening. I think I like both. I think I need to be doing both on a regular basis to feel good.
Yeah.
To feel
Yeah,
so
I hear that.
Yeah.
Cool. Is there anything you would like to plug?
No, you can come watch my improv shows, please. I guess is that a good plug?
Yeah, say what they are.
At the UCB Theater, ASCAT, Queen George, Benetton. Those are the ones I do most regularly.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me. What a treat, Susie.
What a treat.
I feel like I got to learn a lot while also sitting here.
Literally the same. Yeah, you just gave me an analogy that I'm going to use for the rest of my life. So
good.
Thank you. If you like this podcast, you can support us and get a ton of bonus content over at yesalso.supercast.com. If you have a question about improv that you'd like us to answer on one of our future Q&A episodes, send it on over to yesalsopod@gmail. Remember to follow us on Instagram at yesalsopod and keep sharing us with your improv communities. We love the love. If you're a theater who would like to host us for a live recording and improv show, let us know at yesalsopod@gmail.com. A huge shout out to Ryan Rosenberg, who produced this thing with his generous help and his unlimited knowledge about all things podcast. Thanks for listening, and we will see you next week. No, we won't, Susie. That's not how podcasts work. They will see. They won't even see us. They will listen to us. So it's actually the opposite of both things you said. Thanks for listening, and you will listen to us next week. Maybe. We don't know.